Hi, I wanted to give an introduction to the project. We have parts one and part two, and also give you a few hints that might help you out with this project. So we're talking about the university project that you'll see in week 11, and we're going to be we're going to be designing, inserting the data, and querying, and it's all going to be completely from scratch. You don't already have this database. You're going to be creating it like we did with the ART database before. So you do want to go, it's been a while since we've done designing and normalizing and inserting. So do go back to weeks 5 and 6 and look through some of the movie examples and inserting with the movies. Those will be helpful, I think, in kind of refreshing you and helping you remember what we did there. So keep that in mind. You might have to go back and kind of review some of those things. Okay, you're going to have this PDF that you're going to be able to go off of that has all the data that you're going to need. Now, these tables are just word tables. They are not tables in your database. So notice I did put on here that this is more of like a result set where we've joined 3 different entities together to get this result. In fact, yeah, you can run some queries later to recreate this to make sure you got your data inserted right. So be aware that just because it looks like a table here, it doesn't mean it's one whole table in your database. There's actually 3 different tables represented here. So it is a little different from the flat file spreadsheets that we've seen in the past, or the PDFs, I guess, that look like spreadsheets. This is more of kind of how you might see something in the catalog or how you might see something when you look at the sections of a class. So this would actually have maybe 4 different entities in it. This one's probably just one, probably a student entity. And then here, this is representing the logic that's going into the linking table of a many-to-many relationship. So again, the enrolling in is probably just a string that was concatenated together if we wanted to get a result set that looked like this. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that there's different numbers of entities being represented, but all the data that you're going to need is in this PDF somewhere. All right, when you look at the instructions, please read through these assumptions and notes. They will help quite a bit. And just to know, I think the big thing that students will get confused about is they'll think that students enroll in a course. They don't. They enroll in a section of a course. And teachers are the same way. They don't teach courses, they teach sections of courses. There is going to be a separation of some entities there that you need to be aware of. And so keep that in mind. Also, the term table, to be completely normalized, you would have a separate term table with the term and year of that would have many sections in it. Your queries might run okay if you don't do that, but that is one other thing that kind of throws students a little bit. So I did try to put these notes in there, so hopefully that will help you kind of get a start of all the different entities. I do usually let my students know that there will be 8 tables, 8 entities, well, 8 tables, I should say. One will be a linking table, if that helps. Okay. Let's see, you're going to be forward engineering. Once you have the ERD, you'll do a forward engineer, and you'll be putting that code into a query tab, and then underneath that you'll be doing your inserts. So it is a lot like we submitted before. If you have an ERD open and you forward engineer, remember you can grab that code at this point, copy to the clipboard. That's what I'm talking about. I need all of this before the inserts. The reason being is the person grading needs to recreate your database and insert so that they can see everything that you've done. So keep that in mind, that that's how it's going to be submitted. You're going to have that forward engineering with all the insert statements below it. All right, when you're in your ERD, I would not worry about, oops, let me figure out what I'm doing here. I would not worry about doing auto increment. I would probably leave that unchecked. So when you're doing the inserts, you'll actually be putting a number in. For most students, that seems to help them out rather than leaving an auto increment and putting default or null for their primary key, just because the logic of trying to put together the linking tables and the foreign keys seem to be a little easier if they just put their own primary key in. But that's up to you. I do have a few students each semester that are fine doing it with auto increment and putting default in their inserts. It is just take a little more thought when you're looking at the logic of inserting later. So I would suggest leaving that off if it was me, and putting my own numbers in there. And some students even like to, instead of just using 1 through 2, 3, 4, 5, they'll use that for the students maybe, but then they'll use 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 for another one, or they'll use 11, 22, 33, 40, if that helps. But you can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for, that order, one number after another for all of them if you want. But anyway, it just making your own numbers just seems to help the students out a bit, but it doesn't matter. All right. Also, notice that if you're like, oh, I can't remember how to do inserts, when you go into all your preparation material every single week, you've always had that reading, and you can open it with the link here, and it shows the whole book, the whole reading. So you could go to the inserts week and look up that, and then you could go, oh, I forgot how to design or what normalizing was about, so you could go there. So realize you can open up this text and get all of the different weeks all right there. So if you want to just kind of have that open. When you are going to do your inserts, order does matter. So this is just just a very small actors and movies table, or ERD. So yours will have 8 tables, right? It'll be totally different. But when I'm going to do my inserts, I can't just jump right into cast and start inserting into that one, because I haven't created the primary keys yet that would be a part of this cast. So you do have to start kind of from the outside in, starting with all the tables that don't have foreign keys first. So I would start with insert into studio and do all the inserting into that one. Then maybe I'd go to actors, or I could do actors first and then studio, but I would do the ones without a foreign key first. Then once studio is done, I'm able to insert into movies, and I do have to put that foreign key value in, right? So I'm going to have to know what studio to put into each of the movies. That will be part of my insert. And the cast would be very last, because I'm going to have actors and movies before I'm going to have the 2 numbers for the cast. So there is an order that you need to run your inserts. Otherwise, you're going to get an error that says something like foreign key constraint, child of a foreign key can't be, because it's not seeing the foreign key you have in there because you haven't created the primary key that goes with it. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Start from the outside in, tables without foreign keys first. Very last will probably be your linking tables. All right. Let's look. I'm going to have you a little sneak peek at the inserts and how they're going to kind of look. So obviously you've got here's one without a foreign key, right? Student didn't have a foreign key. But here's a linking table. We've kind of seen this before when we looked at the artist one with the keywords, right? So you're going to have, for me, it was a section first. Your student might be first. So I was saying, Bryce is getting put into this section, or actually I think 7's Bryce. Bryce gets put into 3 different sections. Anyway, so that's the idea here, right? You just have number. Don't forget this. Some students will completely forget to enroll their students at the very end. You've got to put data into your linking tables. Section 1 can be very confusing for students. So remember, this first column here, 1 through 10, is just the primary key. The next one is what section number they're in, the capacity, of how many students can be in that class. Then the next 3 are foreign keys. Okay, so this section actually has 3 different foreign keys: who teaches it, what course it's coming from, and what term it's offered in. Okay, so I like to put a comment next to it. So as I'm going through the PDF and I'm adding each of those classes in, I like to say, okay, the first class was fall of 2020, section number 1 is taught by this person, has a capacity of 30. I like to put what class I'm doing here because this is really confusing to me which class this is and what section number is and what term it's offered in. So I will go through and put something like this so that when I get to this one and I know that Bryce is enrolled in CIT 111 right here, so I'd say, oh, Bryce is enrolled in CIT 111 section 2, I can quickly see that and be fine with it and know that Bryce is going to go into that class. So I would suggest making sure you've got some good comments for your section. Okay, hopefully that didn't give you away too much there, but I do want to make sure that's very clear because it can get a little bit confusing. It's going to take a while to enter some of this data, and it's not going to be super quick to think through some of this logic. It's all about problem solving, right? So make sure you spend some time getting it right the first time, and then you're not going to have to go back and make changes because this needs to be completely right. Part 1 needs to be completely right with all the right data inserted into it, or you're not going to be able to go on to part 2, which is the queries, running queries on the data. And there's not much introduction I need to give. Well, actually, I will do a video on modulus for part 2. But anyway, hopefully that gets you started on part 1, and let your instructors know if you need any extra help.